Alright, so last week I went to Chicago. Again, but this time it was more just to visit it and see around. And, as I've done in the past, I am going to tell you what I did there. Now, one of the first things we did is we went back to the Museum of Science and Industry. And we saw several different things, among them these older trains, which just essentially show the progression of trains from their very early stages to later on. We have this train, then we also have this train, which has a vertical boiler, which is just one of the earlier models. This one also, a vertical boiler. Again, these are just kind of just slow advances in the technology. This one has a horizontal boiler, which is the more commonly used one. It's essentially the first representation of it. It's a much more efficient version. We also saw this large DNA model, which is a very big representation of a comparatively short section. So it gives you just an idea how small it is. We also then have this pendulum here, and that showed that the Earth was tilting, because it would swing and then that would tilt. And then what you just saw there was the a representation of wind patterns on sand. Here is a formation of a tornado, which is just kind of cool to see it develop from random gases to essentially a spinning column. Here we then have a Newton's cradle, as it is called, which you might have seen before, although this one's much bigger. Now this shows what happens to substances as they flow through a fluid. The black one is obviously denser than the, I'm guessing it's water in there, and then the brown one is lighter than it, which is, why that one sinks and that one floats. Then there were also these models of different parts of the human body. Here we have the nervous system. Then there's also the, this looks like the cardiovascular system, with the lungs in there, and also the kidney. Here is the digestive system, stomach, and then all those intestines. They're normally much more coiled up than this, by the way. And then here we have the blood vessels. This gives you a representation of just how many blood vessels there are in the human body. Then here we have essentially an exploded view of all the systems in the human body. Here's the front of it, just the muscles, bones, all the different organ systems. And then here's the back of that same, model, I guess. And then here we move on to aircraft. Here we have the Wright brothers' first plane, which was a biplane. And then the key thing that allowed it to work was this engine here. Wait for it. Yes, this engine, right there. That's what allowed them to get off the ground, the supposedly impossible-to-build engine. Then here we have a biplane, which is used for skywriting and just for entertainment. Then over here we have another biplane, but this is used for airmail, essentially just to show that it's feasible. Here we then have a World War II British, I believe British at least, Spitfire. And then here we have another World War II German plane. I don't remember the name of it. I want to say Messerschmitt, but I don't think that's right. Then here we have the capsule for a hot air balloon. You can see it's kind of an intense capsule, not the standard type. And then here we have a large commercial airliner, which it's quite likely you've seen. I don't remember exactly the type of this, but you've more likely seen it. And then here we have the engine for how, the aircraft works. It essentially just shows the process of how the air is compressed and added fuel to it, and then exploded to produce thrust. And here we have a more detailed model of essentially the same engine. And then over here, this is pretty cool. This is a Tesla coil, which they shut off. I think it's somewhere around 100 volts. So that was pretty cool to see. Here we then have a combine. Now, this will split apart the husks of corn into the useful part and the not useful part to be separated. Here we then have a U-505 submarine, or U-boat. It was a German U-boat, that's the German word for submarine, which was captured during World War II. So this is an actual German World War II U-boat. Then here we have the Enigma machine, which is what the Germans used to encode their messages, and cracking this was one of the key things to winning World War II, because then we could figure out the German messages. Now this is a torpedo that would be launched from submarines, such as the U-505, to, sink other ships. And as you're probably getting the idea, it is quite long. in hindsight, I kind of wish I was walking faster. But, I mean, we'll have to do with what we've got. But yeah, it's quite a long torpedo, as you can see. And there's the end of it. Then this here is a teardrop-shaped car, very aerodynamic. Quite frankly, I'd like to drive that. It'd be pretty cool. Then here, this is a model of the International Space Station. And then this here is, I believe, the first rocket, or at least the first proposed rocket that was built. I don't remember if it actually worked, but it was definitely the first one. Then here we have more intense rockets, or diagrams of the rockets that were built. You see there, we've got what looks like the Saturn V. There, it's a good old space shuttle program. And then here we have the Ares 1 and 5, which are proposed to bring us to Mars. But I'm not sure if we're still going with those anymore. And then here we have a space capsule built for one person. And you can just kind of look in just to see how crowded it was. Actually, that was the one for the Apollo 8, actually. Then here we have the spacesuit. So that was actually for 3 people, my bad. This was the one for one person. I'm sorry for the confusion there. And it's still cramped. But that other one was for the Apollo 8, as I mentioned. And now I'm just repeating myself. So, moving on. Here is a rock from the moon. That is actually from the moon. And then here we have a model of one of the smaller Mars rovers. This was all set up before Curiosity, so I believe that's like Spirit or Endeavour. Now, aside from the Museum of Science and Industry, we also visited other more common Chicago things. This here is the Willis Tower, which was the Sears Tower, and is probably better known by that. And this here is just a Chicago landscape from the top of it. And then also at the top of it, I decided to test out how good my camera is. So I zoomed in all the way, and I can pick out individual cars from up there, and it's, I believe, 442 meters tall. So I've got a pretty good zoom. We also, of course, saw the Bean, which I don't know the fascination with it, but it's just kind of cool. And then, of course, Lower Wacker, because, you know, I had to see it after The Dark Knight. It's such a cool scene. And it's also just a cool place down there, an underground roadway system. Wish that was more common. Then here is Water Tower Place, the Water Tower, which was the last remnant from the Chicago fire. And then here we have Navy Pier, as well as a swing around of the entire Chicago, part of the Chicago cityscape. Now I will say, Navy Pier, not as interesting in spring. I mean, it was alright, but it's just not a whole lot to do. Then here we have the planetarium, which we didn't go in to visit, but I did get the outside of. We did, however, go to visit the Shedd Aquarium, which is what you're now seeing images of. And these are just several aquatic creatures. I will not be able to name all of them. I'll be able to give you a general idea of what they are, but I can't name all of them, because I don't know my amphibious creatures. We got a frog there, a large frog. But then if we go down here, we've got these smaller yellow frogs. And because they're so brightly colored, that means they're poisonous, so don't eat those. This I think is really cool. That little worm-like thing, that is a legless amphibian. It is one of the transitions from aquatic to land, and I'm just really fascinated by those type of creatures. That back there, that was a snake. I believe it was I want to say it was a boa constrictor, though it might not be. It wasn't very good images, but that was nevertheless it. And I'm just kind of backtracking because it's going too fast for me. But that thing you saw there that looked like a piranha was a piranha. It was a red-bellied piranha. And now here we're getting to fish, and this is a very large fish. It's huge. These are all fish from the Amazon, so this is a very huge freshwater fish. And then here we have these interesting small little bluefish, a definitely striking comparison from that large one. And then here we just have a bunch of different fish in here, a bunch of marine fish. Marine means that they live in the ocean. Saltwater fish versus freshwater fish, so when you say marine, you mean saltwater. And these are just all these different types of fish. Like there's a hammerhead shark over there, and just tons of different fish. And these are fish, I believe, that live in the coral reef. These fish are not so much. These are, you know, fish. Again, I can't name all of them. This here looks like a turtle, and I'm going to say that's what it is. And then we have fish These are just, you know, fish that I saw and I thought looked cool, so I captured video of. We have this interesting fish. Not quite sure what that is, actually. Well, like most of these things. And turtles, of course. Yeah. And then we have this fish, which has kind of got an interestingly long nose. And then this fish, which I believe is called the paddlefish, I want to say, which has an even more interesting long nose. And then we've got these kind of cool, almost crocodile-looking fish that are just kind of chilling on the floor. And then we have this more long, slender fish. And then we have a bunch of jellyfish, which aren't fish, they're actually cnidarians, which is a phylum of animals, one of the simplest types. They don't really have much for tissues, but there were just a bunch of jellyfish here, which I got a bunch of videos. And this here is a massive jellyfish, which is just really cool. And you can see them in the polyp form, which is when they have kind of that, which is what commonly referred to as a jellyfish. That's their polyp form when they can move. As opposed to the sessile form, which is the one for sea anemones, which are also cnidarians. So jellyfish and sea anemones are both cnidarians. Sea anemones just can't move. That there was a sea otter. These here are dolphins. That is a penguin that is going to jump into the water. Sorry, spoiler alert. See, there it goes. This here is a sea lion, I believe. This here, again, more interesting fish, just chilling on the bottom. That's a king crab. That's a big crab. That's an octopus, a cephalopod, as it were. This here looks like a blue lobster. This here looks like an eel. These are, what are they called? Seahorses, that's what it was. And I believe sea dragons were the other thing. Again, more fish. Because, you know, it's an aquarium, you see a lot of fish there. That's kind of the purpose of it. These guys just look interesting. It's very slow moving. That is a large turtle. Very big turtle. This here is, I think it's a clam? I don't know, it's some sort of mollusk. That's a interesting fish back there. Again, fish. These, I think, those are crabs. I want to say those are crabs. This is kind of a fish just camouflaged again on the bottom of the ocean. Or bottom of the tank, not really the ocean. Here we have a shark. Don't remember the name of it, but it's a shark of some sort. Here we have stingrays. Can identify those. Then here we have a bunch of sea anemones, which I mentioned earlier. Again, cnidarians. Those, I believe, are tiger sharks, I want to say. Though, again, I don't know. Don't take my word for any of these species. I'm just kind of guessing here. Here we have a fish with a weird kind of bulged out forehead. And here we have an iguana of some sort. Again, more bulged out forehead fish. And then here we have a bunch of turtles. And then frogs. And these were all the creatures I captured video of at the Shedd Aquarium. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my nice, quick, 13-minute trip through my Chicago visit. Thanks for watching, and see ya.